Welcome to the place where the things no one dares to say are told word by word. I'm Mark, just an ordinary American, born in Indiana, raised on sci-fi movies, hamburgers, and outdoor camping. I have a stable job in the software industry, a wife and kids, and a loyal dog named Rocket. But for years, one question has haunted me. What exactly is the US government hiding inside Area 51? They say it's just a military testing base. They say there's nothing special about it. They laugh when someone mentions aliens. But if that's true, then why is the place so heavily guarded? Why are there warning signs that say use of deadly force authorized? Why did the government deny its existence for nearly 50 years? When a place is hidden so carefully, funded by taxpayer money, surrounded by miles of motion sensors, infrared cameras, and armed security forces, what does that mean? Maybe it's just top-secret technology. Maybe it's a testing site for strategic weapons. But maybe it's something much bigger. I'm not a dreamer. I don't walk around wearing a tinfoil hat. But I believe in one thing. When the government deliberately hides something from the public for decades, we have the right to ask questions. And I did. Not just once, but for 7 years. I've driven over 2,000 miles across the Nevada desert, right up to the metal fences where even Google Maps blurs the images. I've interviewed former Air Force personnel, radar engineers, and a man who claimed he saw a non-human craft while maintaining the runway. I don't expect you to believe me right away. I just ask that you listen, because if even half of what I found is true, then this isn't just about our understanding of the universe. It's about government secrecy, justice, and the American people's right to know the truth. Area 51. Its name sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's completely real. Located about 83 miles northwest of Las Vegas, in the desolate desert and rugged mountains of Nevada, the area didn't exist on maps. No name, no zip code, not a single mention in public government records until 2013, when the CIA was forced to acknowledge its existence after a series of declassified documents. They said it's a research and testing site for spy planes. U-2, State Route 71 Blackbird, futuristic-looking aircraft were designed and tested here. That's true. But here's the problem. You don't keep a test site hidden for half a century just for that. And then there are the stories. Hundreds, even thousands of reports from eyewitnesses, pilots, engineers, civilian contractors, talking about unidentified flying objects, lights appearing and vanishing in an instant, silent crafts moving in ways that defy the laws of physics. I've read FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, reports. Many cases are classified as unexplainable by current data. Some were even sent straight to the Pentagon, never to be spoken of again. Even stranger, some military technology revealed decades later, from ultralight materials to navigation systems that don't rely on satellites, and even biometric sensors, had already been described in unofficial testimonies about Area 51. I'm not saying these things are definitely alien. I'm just saying either we're centuries ahead of the rest of the world in technology, or someone helped us take a shortcut. So my question is this: what is the US government really hiding inside Area 51? Weapons? Classified technology? Or evidence of extraterrestrial life? And if it's the last one, then why won't they tell us? What are they afraid of? Mass panic? The collapse of religious beliefs? A breakdown of social order? Or something simpler, losing control? I'm not making any claims, but I believe that every citizen has the right to ask questions, especially when those questions involve taxpayer money, the right to information, and the future of humanity itself. And that is why I began this journey, not to prove that aliens exist, but to find out if the truth has been buried for decades, who buried it, and why. Area 51 is no longer the secret it once was. It's located in southern Nevada, inside a vast military complex known as the Nevada Test and Training Range, about 83 miles northwest of Las Vegas. On modern maps, you can find it, but don't expect to get inside. This facility is more heavily guarded than any military base I've ever seen. Not with traditional gates and uniformed guards, but with a dead zone, where if you step a few feet over the boundary, you could be arrested, fined up to $1,000, or in extreme cases, shot without warning. For decades, the US government kept this place a secret. It wasn't until 2013 that they officially acknowledged its existence in a declassified CIA document. They said Area 51 was just a Cold War-era testing site for reconnaissance aircraft like the U-2 and State Route 71 Blackbird. Sounds reasonable, and maybe that's true partially. But here's the thing, 4 years, there have been stories that don't match that explanation. Hundreds of witnesses, former military pilots, radar engineers, even local civilians, have described things they've seen in the skies over Nevada. Strange lights, strange, silent flying objects moving at unimaginable speeds before vanishing instantly. Some of these objects have even been recorded on radar. A few leaked videos, captured by military personnel, security cameras, or local residents, have been officially acknowledged by the Pentagon as unidentified. But that's not all. 4 years, a series of groundbreaking technologies have emerged in the US military and industry: ultralight materials, anti-gravity technology, biological sensors, stealth aircraft, all rumored to have originated from top-secret programs. However, upon closer examination, I noticed something peculiar. Many of these patents have traces linking them to projects once conducted at Area 51, though no one ever clarifies where they truly began. The more I read, listened, and investigated, the more I began to see two parallel streams of information. One is public, designed for the press and general population, stories about high-tech weapons and aircraft testing. The other is more obscure, harder to access, but consistently repeats the same message. Something not of this earth is present there, and the government knows about it. I'm not saying I fully believe it. I'm an American, and I believe in reason. But I also believe that when too many coincidences align, when too much effort is put into keeping something silent, there must be something worth investigating. So I started digging, not to prove that aliens exist, but to answer one simple question. If there's nothing to hide, then why has the government been trying to hide it for so long? Throughout my journey, I encountered two types of people. The first, and the majority, are those who dismiss all stories about Area 51 as pure fantasy. They tell me to spend my time on more worthwhile pursuits. They laugh when I mention extraterrestrials and ask, if they're real, why hasn't anyone ever seen them clearly? The second group, quieter, more reserved, consists of those who have worked near the area, who have seen something, or who know someone who has experienced something strange. They don't confirm anything. They just say, you should be careful. Or, sometimes, knowing too much isn't worth the price. I'm not claiming to have undeniable proof, but I have dozens of puzzle pieces. Testimonies, documents, redacted flight maps, old photographs, leaked recordings, that, when put together, start to form a different picture. And in that picture, one theory keeps surfacing. The US government possesses evidence of extraterrestrial life, whether it's technology or even biological remains, and they have deliberately concealed this truth for over 70 years. This theory traces back to the Roswell incident in 1947, when a strange flying object crashed on a ranch in New Mexico. The military initially reported recovering a flying disc, only to quickly retract the statement, claiming it was merely a weather balloon. But the story didn't end there. From the 1950s onward, rumors became inextricably linked to Area 51. Some say the Roswell UFO wreckage was transported there. Others claim to have seen alien bodies preserved in underground laboratories. Taken individually, these stories sound like a Hollywood script. But when they coincide with the government's continuous increases in funding for black projects and their refusal to answer any congressional questions about Area 51, it stops being a joke. I'm not asserting that everything is true, but I do believe that if something extraterrestrial ever crashed on Earth, or was found, contacted, or recovered, then the highest likelihood is that it lies buried beneath layers of concrete and steel, hundreds of feet deep in the Nevada desert. At Area 51, the core question that drives me, and the reason I started documenting this journey, is the US government hiding the truth about extraterrestrial life? And if so, why? Are they afraid of public reaction? Fearful that markets, religion, and social order would collapse? Or is it something simpler? They want to retain absolute control over technology that does not belong to humanity? I don't expect to convince you to believe this theory. I only ask that you follow me. Through every detail, every interview, every piece of evidence I uncover, and then you decide for yourself what is real, what is fake, and what has been buried for too long beneath the dust of the Nevada desert. Everything began with an email. No subject, no signature. Just a single, unfamiliar sender address and a short message. Don't believe what they tell you. Look at these coordinates. Attached was a set of numbers: 37.24804 degrees north, 115.80015 degrees west. I wasn't new to these kinds of pranks. UFO forums, Reddit, Facebook groups full of half-believers, places crawling with people who love dropping bait for fun. But something about this message felt different. No attempt to persuade, no sensational wording, just a single sentence, more like a real warning. I opened Google Earth, entered the coordinates. The screen zoomed in on southern Nevada, then revealed a blurry satellite image with its center intentionally obscured. No labels, no roads, but from the shape of the runways and surrounding structures, I knew instantly. This was Area 51. The US government calls this place an aviation testing site. But if that's true, then why is the map blurred? Why are satellite images of other areas crystal clear, while this one is deliberately concealed? I dug through an old hard drive, searching for documents I had saved years ago. Interviews with Bob Lazar, the man who claimed to have worked at a facility near Area 51 called S4, where he allegedly saw alien spacecraft and described anti-gravity technology in astonishing detail. I compared Lazar's accounts with maps and satellite images. Some details matched eerily well. Then I noticed something chilling. From 1989 to 1993, there were almost no publicly available satellite images of this area. The official reason cited was military security. But why specifically during that time frame? Part of me wanted to stop here. I have a stable job, a small family, and a normal life. But another part, the part that craves answers, the part that refuses to accept the unknown without questioning, keeps knocking at my door every night. No one sent another message, no follow-up. But I knew someone somewhere wanted me to look at this place, wanted me to ask questions. And that was the moment I decided I wouldn't just read more. I would go. I would get close to Area 51. Not trespassing, not breaking any laws, but close enough to understand why some people were willing to risk their reputation, careers, even their freedom just to reveal what they had seen there. I started with the simplest thing, buying a paper topographic map of Nevada. It might seem outdated, but for sensitive areas, paper maps often show details that Google Maps deliberately omits. Then I rented a small RV, the kind with a bed, a fridge, and enough fuel to stay off the grid for a few days. I planned to head to a tiny town called Rachel, Nevada, the closest populated area to the border of Area 51, about a 2-hour drive from Las Vegas. The population there was barely 100, but it was famous for its one and only bar with a strange name, Little El Inn, a play on the words alien and inn. The place had long been an unofficial meeting spot for those curious about extraterrestrials and Area 51. As soon as I walked in, every eye in the bar turned to me. Not in a hostile way, but in a way that said, "Another UFO hunter." I ordered coffee and sat at the counter. The bartender, a woman in her 60s with stark white hair and razor-sharp eyes, glanced at me through the mirror and spoke softly. "If you came here looking for strange lights, you're not the first. But if you stay too long, you might not be the same person when you leave." I asked if she had ever seen anything herself. She shrugged and poured more coffee. "I've seen a lot of things, but it's what I haven't seen that scares me more." I left the bar as the sun was setting. On my way out of town, I stopped at a large warning sign. White background, red letters. "No trespassing. Photography is prohibited. Deadly force authorized." And that's when it really sank in. Area 51 was no joke. No matter how close you got, there was always the feeling that someone was watching you from a distance. A white pickup truck with no license plates sat parked on a hillside. It didn't move. It didn't flash its lights. It just watched. I set up my RV on public land about 2 miles from the base's perimeter legal for camping. The first night, nothing happened. The second night, I heard a deep, low rumbling from the horizon. Not like civilian aircraft, not like helicopters. Came and vanished in seconds. I grabbed my infrared binoculars and scanned the sky. A flickering dot moved at an impossible speed, changing directions in ways no F-22 ever could. That's when I felt the first real chill down my spine. Not because of what I saw, but because I had no idea what I had just stepped into. Then came the third night. I had just finished jotting down notes on strange aerial phenomena when I heard it. A soft knock on the RV door. 3 taps, evenly spaced, unhurried, as if whoever was knocking had been standing there for a while. I killed the lights, stayed silent. No second knock. I peeked through the narrow slit of the window. There was a man standing outside. A baseball cap pulled low, hands in the pockets of a dust-colored jacket. He didn't look threatening. He didn't wave. He just stood there. After a long internal debate between caution and curiosity, I decided to open the door. "Are you the one who posted on the Black Mesa Archives forum last week?" he asked immediately. No introductions, no small talk. I nodded. That post was just a test, an analysis of satellite data and eyewitness accounts I had compiled to gauge reactions. Almost no one had responded, but clearly someone had been watching. The man pulled up a chair and sat down without asking. His voice was rough, the kind that came from years of smoking. "I worked at S4. Not an engineer, just a tech. But I saw enough to know what isn't human." I stayed silent, letting him continue. Every sentence felt like a stone dropped into the still water of my mind. There are things that don't run on fuel. No doors, no seams. They react to thought, not buttons. We called it unidentified biological technology. No one understood how it worked. Maybe it wasn't meant for humans to understand. I asked, "Do you have any proof?" He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an old, yellowed photograph. The edges curled from moisture. The picture showed a gray steel room with a low ceiling. In the center was an elliptical object, smooth as polished stone, with no windows, no seams. A figure in an orange jumpsuit stood beside it for scale. The object was about 12 feet long. This photo should have been destroyed, but a faded print survived. I held it, my heartbeat accelerating. It didn't look like CGI. It didn't look like a hoax. It had that raw, imperfect authenticity of an old Kodak film, something you can't fake. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. The man looked at me, his eyes exhausted but sharp as a blade. "Because you're not a conspiracy nut. You search methodically. You respect data. You know fear. And you know when to stay quiet." Before he left, he handed me a small handwritten note. "Groom Lake Weather Station, Gate 3, Side Entrance, 12:40 a.m., Saturday." I asked if he would be there. He didn't answer. He just turned and walked away. His silhouette disappeared into the Nevada night like he had never existed. Saturday, 12:40 a.m. I drove away from my campsite, following a rough dirt road southeast, toward what the note called Groom Lake Weather Station, Gate 3, Side Entrance. No signs, no GPS, just a paper map, natural landmarks, and the faint glow of mountains in the distance. As I neared the location, I switched off my headlights, parked, and continued on foot. In the desert darkness, every sound felt unnervingly sharp. The wind hissing through dry grass, the crunch of gravel beneath my boots, and a distant low howl from something massive, but directionless. Finally, I reached a tall chain-link fence. Next to it stood a small gate, a surveillance camera mounted above it, but no lights. A rusted metal sign read, "USAF, Weather Monitoring Station C, no public access." There was no sign of the man from the night before. No signals. I was about to turn back when I noticed a small gap at the base of the fence, just wide enough for a person to crawl through. On the other side, a concrete path sloped downward. I followed it, using a dim red flashlight to stay hidden. At the end of the path was a sealed metal door, equipped with a numeric keypad and a keycard scanner. Couldn't get in, but I took pictures of everything, including a faintly scrubbed-off emblem on the door. It resembled an old Lockheed Martin logo, but something was off. There was a flying triangle beneath it with a partially erased inscription. I could only make out the first 3 letters. Exo. Could it be exobiology? Or worse, EXO-tech? I was preparing to leave when I heard an engine in the distance. Not a car, something jet-powered, but small, sharp, and almost silent. I turned off my light and pressed myself against the rock face. A flying object glided overhead, no navigation lights, no discernible sound. It changed direction with an impossible sharpness, then vanished as if it had never been there. I stood frozen for several minutes. And then, in that absolute silence, my phone received a message. No sender. Just a single screenshot, an overhead satellite image of Area 51, with a specific section circled in red. Below it, a single line of text. They're relocating. If you want to see it before it's gone, move fast. I returned to my RV immediately, my pulse pounding. In my mind, everything started connecting. The photo of the smooth-surfaced object, the mysterious man, the erased emblem, the silent aircraft. No one was trying to convince me this was human technology anymore. The question was no longer if, but since when, and why hide it? I left the perimeter gate in complete silence, taking a different route back to avoid detection. When I reached my RV, a chill ran down my spine. The door was slightly open. I distinctly remembered locking it. Carefully, I pulled out the folding knife in my pocket and entered through the back. No one was inside. Everything was exactly where I'd left it, except for one thing. Something was too quiet. I checked all my belongings. My laptop was still there. My notes were still in the box. But when I plugged in my hard drive, all my folders appeared normal, except for one. Observations_night 2. Empty. Not deleted. Not corrupted. Just empty. At that moment, my phone rang. Unknown number. No caller ID. I answered but said nothing. A deep male voice spoke, without introduction. Mark, you've gone too far. If you want to walk away, stop now. This isn't curiosity anymore. I asked, who are you? We're people you don't need to know. But we know you, and we won't warn you again. The call ended. No dial tone. No call duration. As if it had never happened. I removed my SIM card, smashed the phone, and threw it in the trash. From now on, all communication would be offline. I decided to leave the campsite and relocate to an old motel in Beatty, a town nearly 100 miles from the base's outer edge. I paid in cash under a fake name. At this point, my instincts were clear. I had been marked. 3 nights later, as I sat in my room reviewing backup notes, the TV suddenly switched to static. No signal, just a repeated voice. You cannot hide when you are being watched. You cannot hide when you are being watched. I shut it off immediately and checked the connection. Impossible. I hadn't connected to any network. I taped over my laptop camera, scanned my entire hard drive, and used a signal detector to check for hidden devices. Nothing unusual, but my gut told me otherwise. The next morning, I walked out to my car and found a thin scratch on the windshield. Not deep enough to crack, but clearly intentional. Tucked under the wiper blade was a handwritten note. You think you're looking for answers. The truth is, they're letting you see exactly what they want. It was signed with 3 letters. K-E-Y. I sat in my car for hours, rereading the note. And for the first time, I doubted myself. What if everything I had uncovered wasn't the truth, but a carefully crafted illusion? A layer of deception hiding something far worse? I didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear, but because I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't turn back anymore. If this was just speculation, no one would need to threaten me. If this was all a delusion, no one would need to erase files, make anonymous calls, or leave handwritten warnings. I had touched something real. The next morning, I received an anonymous email. It was sent to an old inbox I had created years ago, used only once, on a forum dedicated to leaked intelligence documents. Subject: What's left unburned? Attachment: a single, unnamed PDF file. I opened it. Inside were scans of 14 pages of documents. Many sections were blacked out, but some remained intact. The first page read, Majestic 12, Internal Briefing, Restricted Eyes Only, July 1989. I froze. Majestic 12, the name the US government had denied for decades. To the public, it was a joke, a conspiracy theory, a myth. But the document in my hands bore an official top-secret stamp from the U.S. Air Force, the United States, and the smudged signature of a man named R.H. Bowman, who was once the chief engineer at Lockheed Skunk Works in the 1980s. Among the legible pages, one passage sent chills down my spine. The object recovered in the Kingman area, Arizona, in 1953 exhibits a biological structure that does not belong to any known form of life. Analysis of the samples indicates the presence of enzymes that function in a pure methane atmosphere at 4 times Earth's pressure. This object was not built. It was born. No welds, no alloys. Its structure resembles muscle tissue but reacts to electromagnetic signals. Evidence suggests that the space within the object does not adhere to linear physical laws. Time and position are not fixed between 2 instances of contact. I sat still, palms sweating. It wasn't fear. It was the feeling of standing before a truth not meant for human knowledge. Just as I was about to save the file to an external drive, my laptop screen went black. A single line of text appeared. White background, plain font. Everyone gets warned, but not everyone knows when to stop. Then everything shut down. The laptop wouldn't restart. The hard drive gave off a faint burnt smell, like someone had remotely triggered a kill switch. I packed my things immediately without thinking. Instinct screamed, "Get out, now." I left the motel, drove east, crossed into Utah, and camped out in a remote mountain range near Grand Junction, Colorado. No signal, no internet, no trace, but my mind had never been clearer. I couldn't stop now, not out of curiosity, but because I knew if they could do this to me, then this entire country had been kept in the dark for far too long, and I was going to tear that mask off, no matter what lay beneath. I stayed off the grid for 7 days. No networks, no GPS, no contact. The first few days, I only heard the wind cutting through pine trees and my own footsteps on the rocky ground. But by the 5th day, I started hearing helicopters. Not commercial helicopters. No beacons. No logos. And never flying close enough to be seen clearly, but always in a spiral pattern, each pass lower than the last. They were searching, and they knew I hadn't gone far. I had to choose. Keep running or go all in. Put everything on the table. My identity, my safety, maybe even my life, to bring the truth into the light. I remembered a name. Tomas Alvarez, a former Los Alamos physicist who had released a 2009 video of an unidentified power source inside a sealed reactor chamber. Shortly after, he vanished from public view, living off-grid somewhere in the Four Corners region. I had contacted him 3 years ago through a secure forum. He only replied with one line, "If you truly want to know, find me where 4 states leave only one survivor." At the time, I thought it was a joke. But now I realized it was a location. Four Corners Monument, where Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico intersect. I drove through the night, arriving at 4:30 a.m. The checkpoint was closed, no guards. I left my car and walked along the desert's edge, hoping he would recognize the signal. And just as my instincts told me, at 5:10 a.m., a sand-colored SUV appeared in the distance. It stopped. No headlights. The door opened. A thin, silver-haired man with deep-set eyes and an intense gaze. "You're not a tourist." I nodded. "And you're not a tour guide." We didn't exchange names. He drove me to a small house nestled against the red rock formations. Nothing modern except an old generator and walls lined with Faraday mesh. I told him everything. What I had seen, what I had heard, and most importantly, the Majestic 12 report. He just listened. No surprise in his eyes. "You're part of the first generation that doesn't trust the government," he finally said. "But you still believe technology is neutral. In truth, technology is the government. just wearing a different mask. You don't need more proof. You need leverage, something that forces them to act. I asked, "What?" He led me downstairs, to a basement where a smooth, egg-shaped metallic chamber stood. No doors, no welds. In the center, a faintly glowing sphere, suspended in midair. They think I have nothing left, but this I didn't steal, came to me, and it still works. I stood frozen. He handed me a small SSD drive. Inside this is the signal it's been emitting for 15 years. Binary code, not human speech, not physical radio waves. It's more like a life protocol. I held the drive in my hand, knowing that if I walked out with it, I had crossed the point of no return. I looked at him and asked, "What do I do?" He didn't answer. He only said, "They won't let you live. But if you act fast enough, public enough, they won't have time to stop it. Pick a place where they can't erase it in time. And if you must die, then die. But don't let the truth die with you." I left at dawn, carrying the drive, a paper copy, and a single commitment in my mind. No matter what, I will make the world see. I had the evidence, a fragment, but enough to start a fire. The SSD Tomas gave me wasn't just raw data. It contained a continuous transmission, logged over 15 years, each data packet precisely 128 kilobytes, repeating in cycles but with slight variations, like something learning, adjusting its way of speaking to us. I can't send it directly to the press. They'll ignore it, or worse, it'll be shut down before it reaches the public eye. Instead, I choose a different path, spreading it through an uncontrolled leak model. I set up a 5-step plan. 1. Create 20 anonymous accounts on Reddit, X, Twitter, 4chan, Mastodon, darknet forums, and self-hosted video platforms. 2. Each account will post a different part of the signal, along with detailed descriptions of its structure, the time it was recorded, geographic coordinates, wave frequency, and Fourier analysis charts. 3. At the same time, I contact 3 linguistics researchers who once worked on the WOW signal from 1977, sending them an encoded sample for analysis without revealing its origin. 4. After 24 hours, I'll release a 45-second video, showing the sphere-like device floating inside a metallic chamber, with the signal playing in the background. My face won't appear, only my voice. You're hearing something that is not human, and not made by humans. It's been here for 15 years, and they don't want you to know. 5. Finally, I'll trigger an automatic script. If I don't log in within 72 hours, the entire original dataset will be sent to 100 random email addresses worldwide, including scientists, journalists, hackers, lawyers, students, and even YouTubers. The operation begins at 11:17 a.m. I pick an odd time to avoid bot filtering systems on major platforms. Within the first 3 hours, my initial Reddit post hits 12,000 upvotes. At first, commenters dismiss it as a hoax, but when an MIT engineer steps in to confirm that this frequency pattern doesn't match any known background noise, the story begins spreading across private groups. By nightfall, my video has been reposted on 4 major forums, one of which gets taken down in just 6 minutes. But the original file has already been downloaded over 5,000 times. It spreads like a virus, and no one knows where it actually came from. I follow my plan exactly. No fixed IP address, no metadata exposure. That night, I receive an email. No subject, no text, just an attached image. A satellite photo, taken from above, showing the exact wooden cabin where I'm hiding. In the image, there's a figure, standing at my door. I jump up, grab my bag, backup hard drive, printed documents, and get out in under 2 minutes. As I look back from a distance, the cabin is on fire. No explosion, no sign of forced entry, but the flames burn clean, as if someone wants to erase all traces without leaving ashes. I know now I have no more time, but at that same moment, the world starts asking questions. CNN runs a headline: "Mysterious signal shared online may be a hoax, but its physical structure baffles experts." BBC reports, "Alien device appears in anonymous video, racks up over 10 million views in one day." And the US government? Total silence. And that, more than anything, makes people believe this is no joke. I used to think, if information is big enough, shocking enough, the truth will find its way out. But I underestimated one thing. Real power isn't about holding the truth. It's about controlling the public's reaction to it. Less than 48 hours after the video goes viral, the narrative starts shifting. Fox News headlines: AI-generated hoax causes panic. A new trick from anti-globalist radicals? MSNBC brings on tech analysts who declare, the light reflections in the video don't match real-world physics. Likely advanced CGI. Twitter is flooded with hundreds of newly created accounts, all pushing the same talking points: debunked proof, scientific breakdown, rational explanations, all citing the same source, the National Institute for Digital Forensic Verification, an organization I've never heard of before. When I dig deeper, their website was created 4 days ago. An information warfare campaign begins. I get locked out of forums. My accounts are flagged as bots and banned. The original video is wiped from every hosting platform. Mirror accounts sharing it start disappearing, or receiving copyright strikes from companies that don't even exist in any trademark database. Then it gets personal. My bank account is frozen due to unusual activity. My credit card is canceled due to a verification error. I call the bank. They ask for an authentication code sent to my phone. But my phone has no signal. Even when I switch the SIM to another device, it still says, SIM not supported. I have officially become a ghost in the system. No identity, no accounts, no access to anything electronic. That night, I hide out in an abandoned house in the Mojave Desert. I boot up my laptop using a clean USB OS and open my last remaining copy of the data. While scanning through the metadata, I notice something strange. In every transmission from the device, there's a repeating data string. A 20-character binary sequence that never changes. I try decoding it Morse code, ASCII, Unicode, nothing matches. But when I convert it to UTM geolocation coordinates, it points to one location, Tonopah Test Range, about 70 miles northwest of Area 51. That's no coincidence. The device, the thing that came on its own to Tomas, seems to be sending a guiding signal. And then the scariest part happens. Command window pops up on my screen. No remote access, no network connection. But still, a single line of text appears. Mark, don't go back there. Just one line. No sender, no trace, no log. I immediately cut the power, smashed the SSD into pieces, and started my journey out of Nevada that very night. I had disturbed the still surface of the lake, and now the things beneath were beginning to rise. I fled Nevada, driving through the night, cutting across Arizona, and stopping at a small rest stop near Flagstaff. With the last of my cash, I rented a cheap motel room, the kind where the surveillance cameras were just for show, never actually working. I needed time to figure out who was playing this game with me. I reopened my final backup. Offline, no network, just to check the signal sequence again. But this time, something had changed. In all previous data packets, the pulse structure had remained stable within its limits. But in this new version, one section had an irregular pulse, with an embedded compressed data block hidden beneath a layer of false encryption. I decrypted it using an old tool Tomas had given me, and found an 18-second video. The first frame, a stark white, empty room, like a sterilized chamber. The second frame, a humanoid figure, gray-skinned, hairless, with glossy black eyes, sitting motionless in the center of the room. No restraints, no expression. The third frame, a man walks in, broad-shouldered, wearing a brown civilian uniform. When he turns toward the camera, I freeze. It's Tomas. I rewind. Again. No mistake. He enters like someone familiar with this place. Unafraid, unbothered. He looks directly at the creature and speaks in Spanish, a phrase I had once heard in a private conversation between us. I don't think it's ready. Then the screen goes black. 18 seconds. Enough to change everything I thought I knew. Tomas wasn't a victim. He wasn't a whistleblower. He was part of the program. Maybe even a key figure in it. But why give me the data? Why help me spread the signal? I combed through our old emails, our exchanges, our encryption keys. I compared the metadata from his files. And then I found it, an inconsistency. Every file Tomas had given me had mismatched timestamps. Some were created before the day he claimed to have stolen them. Some were encrypted with methods I knew required high-level government access. I wasn't chosen by chance. I was chosen because they wanted me to spread it. The US government? Maybe. A deeper faction? Almost certainly. And that being in the video, it wasn't the only thing they were hiding. I sat in that dingy motel room, listening to the creaking ceiling fan and the flickering fluorescent light. One question echoed in my mind. What do they want the world to see? And what is it that they truly don't want us to know? There was no turning back. After discovering the hidden video, where Tomas faced the unknown entity, I knew that everything I believed was just the surface. And to escape this game, I couldn't just run. I had to understand what lay beneath the signals. I went back to the raw backups, hundreds of gigabytes of transmissions, recorded from secret satellites, low-frequency radar, and the floating sphere device itself. Every signal had a stable pulse cycle, repeating approximately every 3.14 seconds, a number so familiar it felt intentional. I ran a full frequency spectrum analysis and found something no one had ever pointed out to me. Within each cycle, there was a pattern of intentional noise, repeating, but with microscopic variations, like a song with deliberate off-key notes. I extracted all 1,500 cycles, removed the background interference, and kept only the discrepancies. When combined, they formed a binary string nearly 750,000 characters long. A language, but not a human one. I reached out to an old friend, Linda, a linguistics professor at Stanford who had worked on whale communication and cephalopod signaling models. I sent her the binary data in an audio format. 2 days later, she called me. Her voice was hoarse. "Mark, this isn't a regular language. It has syntax. It has symmetry. But what's bizarre is, it has recursive feedback. Every segment after another reinterprets the one before it. It's like it's teaching itself. Not a human language, but something designed to be understood over time." I went numb. She continued, "This isn't just a message. It's like a key. Cognitive key. If someone listens long enough, if they learn, they will start to understand what it's saying." I spent 7 sleepless nights, feeding the entire signal sequence through open-source AI language models. And then, on cycle 4872, something appeared. Observation Unit 3.14, location, human influence zone level 0, response not required, continue monitoring, experimental communication, initiated. This wasn't a distress signal. It wasn't a greeting. It wasn't even a warning. It was a technical log, an automated report from a machine that had been watching. And we, humans, were nothing more than a level 0 influence zone in its system. I hadn't made contact with aliens. We had merely stumbled upon one of their devices. A device that may have been operating for decades, centuries, simply waiting for us to advance enough to hear it. Suddenly, I recalled Tomas's words from the video. "I don't think it's ready." He wasn't talking about the creature. He was talking about us. Humankind not ready. I used to believe that if there were a secret buried deep within Area 51, it had to be an alien life form, a spacecraft fallen from the sky, or at the very least, a covert agreement between the US government and some distant civilization. But what I found, it wasn't about them. It was about us. Or more precisely, the force that has been observing and guiding humanity's progress from within. The breakthrough happened when Linda sent me another translation. This time, not from the raw signal, but from a distinct code embedded inside the cognitive key, where each character repeated 89 times, structured within a binary symmetry pattern. When I converted it into a data organization format like JSON, I received a table of information. The first entry read, I stared at the keyword, species 23_001. Linda sent a brief message. It roughly translates to species 23, sample 001. That's us, humans. We weren't searching for extraterrestrials. They had already found us, already classified us, already been watching us, not to communicate, not to destroy, but to monitor the development of intelligence. I found another section, more deeply encrypted, but containing strange concepts. A memory injection threshold, cultural redirection test points, religious mimicry layer, cognitive limit enforcement. I asked Linda, if this is real, does that mean every religious, cultural, and scientific progression of humanity has been manipulated? She was silent for a long time, then finally replied, I can't say for certain, Mark, but it looks like they didn't come to make contact. They created an environment and let us grow within it like an experiment, a simulated observation system, a vast intellectual incubator. And we weren't free inhabitants. We were data. And the US government? I revisited the files Tomas had sent, this time meticulously checking the metadata. In the final backup, there was a hidden PDF file titled Project Looking Glass, Sublevel 4 Briefing. The contents? An internal presentation for high-level personnel. At the top was the US Department of Defense logo, but the small print beneath it sent a chill through my spine. Joint Oversight Initiative, in cooperation with Non-Human Custodian Entity, NHCE. This wasn't just about the US knowing of extraterrestrial beings. They were collaborating, but not in the way we had imagined. Not UFOs, not technology exchange, but jointly maintaining control over the experiment known as Earth. And according to the documents I decrypted, the most critical asset in Area 51 wasn't a life form. It was a data relay station, a gateway transmitting signals, logging behaviors, biological responses, cognitive progress, from our planet to a much larger network. I sat frozen for hours, piecing it all together, a feeling both terrifying and strangely calm. Because at last I understood, we were not abandoned, we were not welcomed, we were being watched, like a child left alone in a locked room, to see how much it can learn before the door finally opens. And that door might be about to open,